Hello and welcome to Great Deltan. Today we are going to be taking a look at the newly released Revolution Train's second run of N-Gauge Pendolinos. Now the Revolution Train's Pendolinos aren't a new model. They were originally released in 2017 and the project itself dates back to 2014 when expressions of interest for the production of the model were first sourced. Nevertheless, I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk you through the model. For those of you who've not properly seen one of these, or for those who are considering buying one of these, I will go through the decoder installation, we'll take a look at the model and the light bar fitting, and then of course at the end we'll have a small running session to finish with. So yes, the Pendolino story started nearly 10 years back when Revolution were first starting out, and we're looking for what they called expressions of interest, where they would basically ask the general public, would you buy this if we made it? And from the information book that comes with the set, I read that they were just short of the kind of numbers they were after, but still it was enough to persuade Revolution and Rapido to go ahead and proceed with the project. Fast forward 3 years later and the locos were released to the buyers who had ordered them in a number of varieties. They were available as either 9 or 11 coach sets for the realistic modelers, or as 5 coach sets for those with less space. They were available as both DC or DCC sound fitted and were made in the Virgin liveries only, of course as they were the only operator at the time. The famous Alstom livery was also released, and that is now quite rare to see. You don't really see many of those sold, because not too many of them were made. The model received huge praise for its new technologies and smooth running. One of the main advancements of this model was the use of conductive couplings, allowing a sort of DCC bus to run the entire length of the train, meaning it had pickups in every coach, and that in turn meant it was very hard to stall this train, as you just had that many pickups on it. Light up first class table lamps, 2 synchronised motor cars and excellent ergonomics saw this set be voted N-Gauge Model of the Decade. Come forward another 3 years and I'm assuming that the guys at Revolution saw that there was a bit of a demand for these units again, now that the N-Gauge market had grown, what with houses getting smaller and the price of 00 gauge sort of shooting through the roof. They released another expression of interest for a second run of the Pendolinos. Now I started N-Gauge back in 2019, so after the initial release of these Pendolinos. However, I did at one point own 3 through the second-hand market. I absolutely love them. They were by far my favourite stock, and because of their conductive couplings I was able to run them straight out on the track without much cleaning. This was good for me, as at the time I had my layout in the shed, which was very open to the elements, and it meant my track got excessively dirty even just a few days after an abrasive clean. I did decide to sell those units, however, when I learnt of the decision for a second run. I would then assume the expression of interest was successful, as it was announced that they would be indeed going ahead with the second run of Pendolinos, this time without the option for DCC sound fitted units, but speakers are pre-fitted, so should one wish to convert to sound, they need only fit a sound decoder. This rerun would also see the Alstom livery not be taken forward, and the option for 5 car sets also withdrawn. The 11 car sets retailed for an early bird price of £365, which then rose to £380 after the early bird price date expired. And the 9 coach sets, I'm not quite sure what the early bird price was, but the final price was £350, which generally is very good value, considering the amount of vehicles you're getting in a set, when you compare that to the likes of Farish asking in excess of £300 for a 4 coach Voyager. The order book closed last year, and today the postman came and delivered the first 3 of mine. There is still a second batch to arrive with 2 more liveries, but today in front of us we have the Virgin Flow and Silk 11 coach set, the Avanti partially liveried set with just the end cars carrying the teak livery. The full set is to arrive in batch 2, and the Department for Transport Ghost plain white set, which was seen after it was confirmed that Virgin would no longer be running the Intercity West Coast franchise in the days of preparation for the takeover by Avanti. So, with all that rambling about the background of this model out the way, let's actually have a look at the set. Now, because I ordered all 4 of my Pendolinos separately at different dates, I got 4 separate packages, and I obviously had to pay postage 4 times, which at £16 per postage charge, it was quite expensive. That also meant that they also came at different times of day, which is a bit annoying. The Royal Mail postman lobbed one of my Pendolinos over the gate and it ended up just falling on a slab. So I do hope there's not too much damage there, but the other two were taken to the door. I mustn't have heard the knock for the first one. So when you open the box, you get obviously your Pendolino and the light bars, which I will just show you one of. I have ordered light bars for all of my sets, and I will go through the fitting of this later on. But you get those packed loosely. You also get this leaflet which showcases all of the upcoming N-Gage models which Revolution are to be bringing out, which is quite nice. The Electro Stars, I'm on the fence about that one because it's very out of region, but we don't know the price yet, so that'll be a future decision. Class 59, I have one of those on order. The Class 313, I have one of those on order. Apparently there's due to be a Network Rail release with a special retailer, so I shall keep an eye on that one. The 1938 tube stock, which I obviously have on order for my future Isle of Wight project. I do need to order a few more of those because I've only got the one and it's not going to be very sufficient. Class 175, 180, I'm looking forward to that one very much. And I've got one of each on order in first livery and EMR livery. Class 93, the K-type Pullmans, don't really have much interest in those. Same with the Cartics, they're just a bit out of era for me. And the Caroline Saloon inspection cars. The nuclear flasks, I've got a couple of those on order, quite like the look of those. And then a few more at the back, which is just again a bit out of region. But it's just a good overall sum up of what Revolution are bringing out, because they do announce a lot and they're all at different stages of the timeline with where they're at, so it's nice to have a sum up of everything that you know is going to be coming out. So the packaging is exactly the same as the original release. There's nothing new here apart from the addition of this Rapido logo. I don't remember seeing that on the old one. So we've got the outer sleeve, bit of info on the back, picture, and then we have our two book sets inside. Book set 1 contains all your technical info, the manual, bit of background behind the model and the guys at Revolution. And then we have our parts list and exploded diagrams, which is always handy. And then we have the model. So I've chosen the Avanti set to show you around because that is quite a popular one. Again, this is the partially liveried one with just the end coaches carrying the teak livery. You've got your spares at the top here, which include spare couplings and springs because they do break. I've broken one in the past when I've dropped a coach. We have spare pantographs, which is again is useful. And then we should have in here some details for the front end with the option for NEM Rapido couplings should you wish to couple this unit to a diesel to replicate a diesel hauled loco service. Again, this is exactly the same as the original model. The only difference with this being it takes next 18 decoders, not the 6-pin decoders, but the livery is the main showcase of these new releases, as this is all brand new, never released before. Right, I'm just going to take you through the installation of a decoder on these units. In the past I've had trouble with the cheaper decoders, especially the Rails of Sheffield Rails decoders. I've had one just completely die in the Pendolino, and on another occasion the two motor cars didn't keep in sync. Of course I didn't realise this until the traction tyres had all shredded on one because they just had too much friction between that and the rails. So this time I have gone with a more expensive decoder. There is actually a recommendation in here of what decoder to use, but I just wanted to go with a bit more expense. These were £35 each from Peter's Spares. Now here we are. In the manual it recommends to use an ESU 59828 Lock Pilot 5 Micro, which are around the same price as the Zemo ones. I've only ever had a couple of Zemo decoders in the past and they are absolutely brilliant, so I thought I'd invest a bit more heavily in the DCC fitting of these units and just pay out a little bit more. So same as the original runs, you just release this clip at the back and you can unclip the body with care, of course, and the whole thing just lifts off. And inside we have our pre-fitted speaker, our Next 18 blanking plate, and at the front our lighting module and the light for the top of the cab. So I just take that off, unclips, and then we shall get our decoder out, and I shall put both decoders in these. Right, I had the loco on the track and I ran into a big issue. The issue being that when I increase the throttle, this happened. They run in opposite directions. Now obviously that is not supposed to happen because they run as a set. They're supposed to be in sync, but just the opposite direction. So I tried to flip that round, program it again, didn't work. Programmed it in opposite directions, didn't work. I had a look at my Ghost set and my Flow and Silk set, and they both did the same. The power cars run in opposite directions. So I was not quite sure what to do. I gave my friend Nick a message. Nick is from 3D Wagon Works, and not only is he a whiz with a 3D printer, but he's also quite knowledgeable on all the technical stuff and the electronic side. He also knows decoders very well and the parameters. So he suggested it's probably a problem with CV29, which I had never been into before because I'm not that technical with this. But if I go to my Z21 app, CV29 is called the configuration register, and it basically is this binary code which controls a bunch of things on the decoder, including the speed steps, and it's just this series of ones and zeros which basically are on or off switches. And bit 0 is the normal direction of travel. So if I change bit 0 to a 1, that changes the address for the value from 14 to 15. I can either change that to a 1 or I can change that manually to 15. It's the same result. And then if I take one of the power cars off and I set that CV, that will reverse one of the power cars. So now I can run them in the same direction. Full credit has to be given there to Nick Evans from 3D Wagon Works, who not only is very knowledgeable but is also a night owl because it is nearly midnight and he was still active on Facebook, fortunately. So he was able to help me out there. So now let's get this loco on the track and give it a run. Right, we have it on the track now, and as you can see, the first class table lamps are all nicely lit up in the first two coaches, and our tail lights are on the trailing car. These trains are very easy to set up in order because all of the coaches are lettered from A to K in alphabetical order, with a couple of letters that are missing which are apparent and on the 11 coach sets. The couplings can be a little bit difficult to assemble. You can't just push them together like a tension lock coupling. You do have to lift them off the track and push them together quite rigorously, which makes me think that these coaches, or these sets, would be more suitable for fixed rakes. When I had my old Pendolinos, I must have run them only about 10 to 15 times, and every time I ran them I had to take it all apart, put it back in the storage tray because I didn't have a fiddle yard. And I noticed over time the couplings became a little bit easier, which means they were obviously loosening. So I don't know how many times you can, continuously take the loco apart and recouple it. But hopefully it's not going to be an issue for the future. So that's about it for the babbling. Let's give it a run and we'll see how it goes. Right, I've been running this train for about 5 minutes now non-stop. I've had some high speed running as well, and I have had absolutely zero issues with it. The only small thing I've found is that the power car on the the leading end is a little bit jumpy, and I wouldn't expect that considering it's supposed to be continuously picked up by the entire train off the track. I'm wondering if that's gonna, decrease as it runs in a bit further. But you just notice on the front there that the headlights are a little bit flickery, not all the time, and the power car, the leading car just jumps a little bit, which sends shocks through the entire train. It's not a big issue, but I've had no uncoupling, no derailments, no shorting of the track due to axles going across both rails. So at the minute I'm happy with the how everything runs. There's just that little issue with the programming, which if you're inexperienced might not be able to fix, and obviously that was the case for me, as I needed to seek some assistance. So the last thing before the running session I'm going to look at is the fitting of light bars in the coaches, and then I'll get the other two trains set up and programmed, and we'll just have a bit of a running session at the end. Right, turns out I will not be fitting any light bars today. This is due to all three of my sets missing the conductive springs, which run through the run from the pickups on the chassis here through the body, which then contact these conductive pads on the light bar itself. The procedure of fitting these, I imagine, isn't overly difficult. They just sit on top there. You have 4 screw holes. You probably only need 2. With every light bar set I got, they gave me a pack of screws, which is good because then I don't have to source my own. So yeah, won't be fitting any today. This is an issue which has been quickly caught on by Revolution Trains, and they have done everything they can to rectify this. This is an issue on Rapido's part, not Revolution. However, they have messaged me and sent me an email with what to do. So I shall get that rectified and have the springs sent to me free of charge. Light bars aren't for everyone, but I personally quite like them, as it just makes the train seem a little bit more realistic and not like it's just parked at the side of a depot with the power off. The only issue with these Pendolinos is that the lighting is only available in the trailing coaches, not in the driving cars, because all the room is taken up by the motor and the speaker. So it's a bit of an issue, but I do quite like them, and I think this set cost me £45 for an 11 coach set and £40 for a 9 coach set. So it's not overly expensive either. So yeah, won't be fitting any light bars today. So let's just set these trains up and we shall get them all running. Right, that'll be it from me today. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you found this video helpful, if not anything else. Just to solve some of the little nitty bits with these Pendolinos. Overall though, I'm very happy with how they've come out. The liveries look absolutely brilliant, and I think Revolution have done an excellent job with these, as they did with the first run of Pendolinos as well. I can't imagine there'll be a third run in the future. By that time these Pendolinos will probably have been replaced on the West Coast Main Line, as they're approaching or have exceeded 20 years of age now. So that's all for me today. Thank you for watching. I shall be back again soon when I continue on with my scenery, but until then, stay safe all and enjoy the running session to follow. Bye bye.